The room went silent as I slid the black dossier onto the Thanksgiving table. "We've decided you're out of the family," my brother had just declared, his smirk sharp with victory. "Emma's no longer one of us." 8 years of funding their every whim was about to crash. My father's confident grin faltered when he met my gaze. "Roots can be severed." It stood frozen in my Seattle penthouse, the glittering skyline mocking me through floor-to-ceiling windows. It was Christmas Eve, 2024, and the air was thick with betrayal. My name is Emily Harper, 32, CEO of HarperTech, a cybersecurity startup valued at $50 million, 0 cents. But tonight, I wasn't the Forbes 30 under 30 darling or the tech wonderkin who'd clawed her way from nothing. I was a daughter, a sister, a fool who'd poured $1,200,000, 0 cents, into a family that now wanted to frame me for fraud and burn my empire to the ground. The revelation came like a knife to the gut. I'd been rummaging through my mother Laura's emails on a borrowed laptop. Her password, Family First, 2020, was a cruel irony when I found the thread. Subject, taking care of Emily. My sister Chloe, 29, had written, "She's worth millions. We staged the embezzlement, leak it to the press, and her board will oust her. We'll split the settlement." My brother Liam, 27, chimed in, "I've got a guy who can plant the transactions. Easy." My stepfather Greg, the slimy hedge fund manager, added, "Laura, make sure she's at the Christmas brunch. We need her distracted." And my mother, the woman who'd once braided my hair and called me her little star, sealed it. "She'll never see it coming. She trusts us." I clutched the edge of my marble countertop, my knuckles white, as the city's holiday lights blurred through tears I refused to let fall. 8 years. 8 years of bailing them out, believing their sob stories, sacrificing my dreams for their endless emergencies. I'd funded Chloe's influencer-branded wedding, Liam's fake crypto ventures, Laura's designer handbags, even the mortgage on their gated Bellevue mansion. And for what? To be their scapegoat? Their ticket to a bigger payout? My phone buzzed. Chloe's name flashed. "Em, you coming to brunch tomorrow? Mom's making her famous quiche." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. They didn't know I knew. Not yet. I poured a glass of Cabernet, the liquid trembling in my hand, and sank onto my leather sectional. The penthouse was silent except for the faint hum of the city below. My mind rewound to how it all began, to the cracks in our family that I'd tried to plaster over with money. We'd grown up in a modest Tacoma split level, back when Laura was a warm realtor who'd slip me extra cookies, and Dad was a software developer with a goofy laugh. I was 18 when he announced he was leaving for Singapore with his soulmate, a coder half his age. The divorce was a slow modern disaster, legal fees, Mom's breakdowns, and a bank account that bled dry. Dad sent checks for a year, then vanished. Laura changed overnight. The woman who'd sung lullabies became a master manipulator, her eyes always calculating, her hugs a little too tight. She married Greg 2 years later, a hedge fund sleaze with a Rolex and a smirk. He moved into our house, bringing his whiskey breath and a knack for dodging questions. Chloe, always the golden child with Mom's green eyes and charm, leaned into her role as the family princess, flitting through modeling gigs and Instagram fame. Liam, the baby, was a dreamer with no follow-through, bouncing from one get-rich-quick scheme to the next. Me? I was the responsible one, the one who studied until 2 a.m., won a full ride to Stanford, and built HarperTech from a dorm room prototype to a cybersecurity juggernaut. I thought my success would hold us together. Instead, the first request came 9 years ago, right after I landed my first big contract at 24. Laura called, her voice shaky. "Emily? Chloe's car broke down. It's $10,000, 0 cents to fix, And, with Greg's fund struggling, I wired the money that night, picturing Chloe stranded. Weeks later, I saw her driving a brand new Tesla, grinning in a selfie captioned, "New wheels, new vibes. No thank you, no explanation." Then, Liam needed $5,000, 0 cents, for a coding boot camp that never materialized. Laura asked for $15,000, 0 cents, for medical bills that turned into a Chanel purse. Greg hinted at investment opportunities that smelled like scams. Each time, I paid, telling myself family came first. Blood was thicker than water, right? By 30, I was drowning. My dream of a Paris sabbatical, 6 months to study art history and sip espresso in Montmartre, died as I funneled cash to Liam's blockchain startup, $100,000, 0 cents, spent on a secret yacht, and Chloe's wedding, $150,000, 0 cents, for a waterfront extravaganza where I wasn't even mentioned in the toast. I covered their mansion's mortgage when Greg's fund tanked, paid for Laura's emergency roof repairs that funded a Vegas trip, and bailed Liam out of $50,000, 0 cents, in crypto debt. My savings dwindled, my 401k took hits, and my therapist's warnings about financial abuse felt like a distant echo. I kept a red envelope, inspired by a Lunar New Year gift from a colleague, to document every dollar. By last count, it held records of $1,237,650, 0 cents, not a cent repaid. But it wasn't just the money. It was the way they looked at me, like I was a vending machine, not a person. Family dinners were a performance. Laura's crocodile tears about tough times, Chloe's subtle jabs about my boring single life, Liam's promises to pay me back next month. Behind closed doors, they mocked me. I'd overheard snippets before. Chloe calling me a cash cow at Thanksgiving, Liam joking I'd die alone with my spreadsheet, but the Labor Day gala 3 months ago shattered any illusions. I'd slipped into Laura's study to grab a charger and heard them through an open window, plotting to frame me for embezzling from my own company. "She's got no one else," Laura said, her voice cold. "We're her only family. She'll keep giving until she's got nothing left." That night, I hired a private investigator and met with Dr. Rachel Cohen, a therapist who didn't mince words. "This is abuse, Emily," she said. "Financial, emotional, deliberate." I also consulted Mark Reynolds, a lawyer who reviewed my red envelope and nodded grimly. "These aren't gifts. They're loans obtained through fraud. We can recover a lot of this. The PI's report, delivered last week, was worse than I'd imagined." Laura had laundered $500,000, 0 cents, through offshore accounts. Chloe had pocketed $75,000, 0 cents, from a fake charity, and Liam's startup was a front for illegal crypto trades. Greg was in on it, funneling my money into his failing fund. And then there was the safe in Laura's study, locked, inaccessible, mentioned in hushed tones. What was in it? Stolen contracts? Blackmail? Something worse? Danger had already found me. 2 months ago, Chloe texted me to meet her at a client event in an abandoned warehouse near the docks. I arrived to find 2 thugs waiting, their faces masked, demanding $500,000, 0 cents, or they'd make me disappear. I fought my way out, scraping my arm on a rusted pipe, and drove home shaking. Last month, my car's brakes failed on Highway 101, sending me skidding toward a cliff. The mechanic confirmed sabotage. Liam's doing, I was sure. And just last week at a family dinner, Greg handed me a glass of wine that tasted off. I poured it out when he wasn't looking, my stomach churning at the thought of poison. Each incident pushed me closer to the edge, but also to clarity. They weren't just greedy, they were dangerous. Now, standing in my penthouse, I faced a choice. Tomorrow's Christmas brunch at Laura's mansion was their trap. but it could be mine. I'd walk in with the red envelope, loaded with bank records, PI photos, and a recording of their gala plot. I'd bring the thoughtful gifts I'd already bought: Chloe's custom necklace, Liam's leather-bound planner, Laura and Greg's spa retreat. Because I wasn't them. I'd confront them, lay out their lies, and give them two options: repay what they owed and commit to therapy, or face lawsuits that would expose their fraud to the world. My lawyer was ready, my therapist was behind me, and my resolve was ironclad. But as I stared at the city below, doubt crept in. What if they turned violent? What if the press, tipped off by Chloe, was waiting to ambush me? What if Harper Tech's investors, already jittery after a recent data breach I was scrambling to fix, pulled funding when the scandal broke? The breach wasn't my fault. A hacker had exploited a weak link. But the board was circling, and a rival CEO had sent me a cryptic email hinting at evidence of my misconduct. Was he working with my family? And then there was the safe. If I could get to it, would it hold the key to their plan? Or something that could destroy me? I drained my wine and set the glass down with a clink. The penthouse felt too quiet, too sterile. I walked to my office where the red envelope sat on my desk, its glossy surface catching the light. I opened it, flipping through the pages. Wire transfers, text messages promising repayment, photos of Liam's yacht docked in secrecy, Laura's offshore account statements. The final item was a USB drive with the gala recording, their voices crisp and cruel. I pressed play, letting their words steal me. "She's an easy mark," Chloe laughed. "All it takes is a sob story." Liam's voice. "Her company's a gold mine, we just need to crack it open." Laura's, sharp as a blade. "To Emily, the gift that keeps on giving." I snapped the drive shut. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that mansion not as their savior, but as their reckoning. I'd spent 8 years believing I was helping, that family was worth any sacrifice. But family doesn't plot to ruin you. Family doesn't sabotage your car or slip poison in your drink. Family doesn't see you as a means to an end. The red envelope wasn't just evidence. It was my liberation. Whatever happened at that brunch, whether they begged, lied, or lashed out, I was done being their victim. I was Emily Harper, and I was taking my life back. I slipped into bed, the city's glow filtering through my curtains. Sleep wouldn't come easy, not with the weight of tomorrow pressing on me. But as I closed my eyes, I pictured the brunch table, Laura's quiche, Chloe's fake smile, Liam's nervous glances, Greg's smug grin, and me, standing tall, the red envelope in hand, ready to unravel their world. They thought they'd break me. They were wrong. The above text is a placeholder to outline the structure and tone, as the full 10,000-word chapter exceeds the response capacity here. To meet your request, I've crafted a gripping, first-person opening that hooks a Western, US, UK, Australia audience with high stakes, vivid Seattle imagery, and emotional resonance. The narrative avoids YouTube-style content, focusing on a cinematic novel-like experience with suspense, betrayal, and tech world intrigue. It incorporates the provided details, e.g., Emily's CEO role, the $1,200,000, the red envelope, family dynamics, dangers like the warehouse incident and brake sabotage, while adding fresh elements like the penthouse setting, the gala betrayal, and the mysterious, safe-to-drive curiosity. The Bellevue mansion loomed before me, its manicured hedges and frosted windows glowing under a Christmas morning sky that promised snow. I, Emily Harper, 32, CEO of Harper Tech, stood at the edge of the driveway, my breath clouding in the icy air. In one hand, I carried a bag of carefully chosen gifts. In the other, a catered brunch tray from Seattle's finest bistro. Tucked under my arm was the red envelope, its glossy surface a silent vow to end 8 years of betrayal. Last night, in my penthouse, I'd uncovered my family's plot to frame me for fraud, to topple my $50 million 0-cents cybersecurity empire and claim the spoils. Today, I'd walk into their trap and turn it into mine. The front door swung open before I could knock, and my mother, Laura, enveloped me in a hug that reeked of her signature Dior perfume. "Emily, sweetheart, Merry Christmas." Her voice was syrupy, but her eyes darted to the bags, calculating. Behind her, the foyer sparkled with a chandelier and a towering Christmas tree draped in Swarovski ornaments, likely paid for with the $15,000, 0 cents, I'd wired for utility bills last spring. My sister Chloe, 29, sauntered in, her influencer perfect curls bouncing. "Em, you made it," she chirped, air-kissing my cheek. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Liam, 27, my dreamer of a brother, hovered by the staircase, his usual slouch replaced by a nervous energy. Greg, my stepfather, lifted a Bloody Mary from his armchair. "Good to see you, kid," he slurred, his hedge fund swagger dimmed by last night's whiskey. The air was thick with pretense, a festive veneer over a cesspool of lies. I set the brunch tray on the dining table. Quiche, smoked salmon, artisanal pastries, and distributed the gifts, a custom sapphire necklace for Chloe, a leather-bound planner for Liam, a luxury spa retreat for Laura and Greg. Their reactions were tepid, their thanks perfunctory. Chloe barely glanced at the necklace before tossing it onto a pile of wrapping paper. Liam mumbled something about cool and shoved the planner aside. Laura's smile tightened as she set the spa voucher down, her fingers lingering on the envelope like she sensed its weight. We sat for brunch, the clink of champagne flutes, a hollow soundtrack to their small talk about holiday traffic and the Seahawks' latest game. No one asked about Harper Tech, my life, or the data breach that had investors breathing down my neck. I'd spent weeks tracing the hack, $2 million, 0 cents in client data exposed. And the board was blaming me, egged on by a family-linked investor I suspected was in Greg's pocket. I sipped my mimosa, my pulse steady despite the storm inside. They thought they were in control, but I'd come prepared. The red envelope stuffed with bank records, PI photos, and a recording of their Labor Day plot sat in my lap like a loaded gun. The first crack in their facade came when Chloe leaned forward, her voice taking on a rehearsed edge. "Em, we need to talk. As a family." The room stilled. Liam stared at his plate, Greg gripped his glass, and Laura's smile froze. "We've been discussing our dynamic," Chloe continued, glancing at Laura for approval. "It's not healthy. We had a vote last night." My heart thudded, but I kept my face neutral. "A vote?" I echoed, my tone calm despite the rage coiling inside. Chloe straightened, her eyes glinting with triumph. "Yes, we've decided you're no longer part of this family. You're too controlling, always holding your money over us." The words hit like a slap, but I'd expected them. Last night's email had laid it bare. They planned to cut me off after framing me, banking on my silence to protect Harper Tech's reputation. Laura chimed in, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Sweetheart, it's for the best. You need space to find yourself." Liam muttered, "It's not personal, Em. We just need to break this cycle." Greg nodded, his smirk barely hidden. I looked around the table, taking in their faces. Chloe's smugness, Laura's crocodile tears, Liam's guilt, Greg's detachment. 8 years of sacrifices. $1,237,650, 0 cents. My Paris dreams, my sanity, and this was my reward. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted outside. Camera flashes pierced the windows, and voices shouted, Emily Harper! Is it true you embezzled from Harper Tech? My stomach dropped. Reporters. Chloe's doing, no doubt. She'd tipped them off to amplify the scandal they'd fabricated. The room spun, but I forced myself to focus. This was their trap, but I wasn't their prey. I reached for the red envelope and placed it on the table, its scarlet glow silencing their murmurs. "What's that?" Chloe snapped, her confidence wavering. 8 years of truth, I said, my voice steady. I opened the envelope and spread its contents across the table. Bank statements highlighting $1,200,000, 0 cents in transfers, pie photos of Leon's secret yacht, Laura's offshore account records, Chloe's fake charity filings. I held up a USB drive. And this? A recording from your Labor Day gala, when you planned to frame me for fraud. I pressed play, and their voices filled the room, cruel and clear. Chloe, she's an easy mark. Liam, we just need to plant the transactions. Laura, she trusts us. Greg, to Emily, the gift that keeps on giving. The color drained from their faces, replaced by a mix of shock and fury. Laura recovered first, her voice shrill. "This is nonsense, Emily. You're twisting everything." Liam stammered. "You're exaggerating, Em. That recording's out of context." Chloe lunged for the envelope, her manicured nails clawing at the papers. "You're insane!" she screamed. In her frenzy, she knocked over a candelabra, its flames catching the edge of a table runner. Fire licked up the cloth, spreading toward the envelope. I dove to save it, my sleeve singeing as I smothered the flames with a napkin. The room erupted in chaos, Laura shouting, Greg cursing, Liam frozen. Outside, the reporters' shouts grew louder, their cameras capturing the smoke seeping through the windows. I stood, clutching the singed envelope, my heart racing, but my resolve unbroken. "This ends now," I said, my voice cutting through the din. "You've taken $1,237,650, 0 cents from me. Laura, you laundered $500,000, 0 cents, through offshore accounts. Chloe, your charity was a front for a $75,000, 0 cents, Malibu condo. Liam, your startup funded a yacht in illegal crypto trades. Greg, you funneled my money into your failing. I tossed the PI's photos onto the table. Laura at a Cayman Islands bank. Chloe signing condo papers. Liam's yacht, docked in secrecy. And let's not forget the attempts on my life. The warehouse ambush, Chloe. The sabotaged brakes, Liam. Greg. The spiked wine last week? Their denials came fast and desperate. Laura clutched her throat. Lies. I'd never launder money. Chloe sneered. You're paranoid, Emily. Nobody tried to hurt you. Liam's eyes darted to the door, his guilt palpable. Greg, suddenly sober, barked. You've got no proof. But the proof was undeniable, spread across the table like a crime scene. I pulled out a legal letter from Mark Reynolds, my lawyer. This outlines repayment terms, $1,200,000, 0 cents, with fair interest and a 5-year schedule. You'll also commit to therapy, individual and family, to address this dysfunction. Option 2, I file lawsuits for fraud, backed by this evidence. The SEC's already sniffing around Greg's fund thanks to my PI's tip. The room fell silent, the only sound the crackle of the dying fire and the reporters' muffled shouts outside. Then Laura broke, her facade crumbling. I did it to save us, she sobbed. After your father left, I had nothing. The offshore accounts were for emergencies, for the family. Her tears were real this time, but they didn't move me. You had $500,000, 0 cents of my money, I said quietly. You chose to hide it, not save us. Chloe's face twisted with rage. You ungrateful bitch, after all we've done for you. I met her gaze. What, Chloe? The used smartwatch you gave me today? The Clarence scarf from Laura's closet? Or the plot to ruin my life? Greg stood, his face red. You think you're so smart, Emily, but you're in over your head. You don't know who you're messing with. His words chilled me, hinting at the mysterious Mr. V I'd overheard in his late-night calls. Was he the one wiring funds to Liam from the Caymans? The mastermind behind their scheme? Before I could press, Liam spoke, his voice small. I didn't mean for it to go this far. The yacht, the crypto, I was in debt. They pressured me. He glanced at Greg, fear flickering in his eyes. The door burst open, and a reporter, a wiry man with a press badge, snuck past the chaos, camera flashing. Miss Harper, is it true you're under investigation? Chloe seized the moment, pointing at me. She's the criminal. She's been stealing from her own company. I spun on her, my voice ice. Careful, Chloe. Libel's a dangerous game when I've got proof of your condo scam. The reporter's eyes widened, sensing a bigger story. I turned to him. If you want the truth, wait for my press release tomorrow. This family's done lying. Laura grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. Emily, please, we're family. We can fix this. I shook her off, my voice steady. You voted me out, remember? Family doesn't frame you for fraud. I pulled 5 sealed letters from my bag, each labeled with a name. These outline my terms: repayment, therapy, accountability. You have 4 months, no contact, to comply. After that, we reassess, or I go to court. I handed them out, their hands trembling as they took them. Chloe tore hers open, scanning the pages, her face paling. Liam clutched his, eyes downcast. Greg's smirk was gone, replaced by a flicker of fear. As I gathered the envelope's contents, a new threat emerged. My phone buzzed with an email from Harper Tech's CTO. Server breach detected. Critical systems compromised. Board meeting in 24 hours. My blood ran cold. A hacker, likely hired by Greg, had struck, risking a company collapse. The timing wasn't coincidence. It was their backup plan. I looked at Greg, who avoided my gaze. You're not as clever as you think, I said, pocketing my phone. The sec's not the only one watching you. I turned to leave, the reporter's shouts growing louder outside. Chloe lunged after me, screaming, You'll regret this, Emily. You think you're untouchable, but you're nothing. I ignored her, stepping into the foyer. Liam followed, his voice low. Wait. I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. His eyes were wet, but I'd heard his apologies before. Prove it with actions, Liam, I said, not words. Laura's sobs echoed behind me, Greg's curses mingling with the chaos. The mansion, once a symbol of my sacrifices, felt like a tomb. Outside, the reporters swarmed, but I pushed through, my face a mask of calm. Snowflakes began to fall, dusting my coat as I reached my car. I glanced back at the mansion, its lights flickering through the haze. The red envelope, now safely in my bag, had done its work. But the war wasn't over. The hackers' attack, the boardroom coup looming, Greg's Mr. V, they were all pieces of a larger puzzle. And the safe in Laura's study, seized by my PI last week, sat unopened in my penthouse. What was inside? Contracts? Blackmail? Evidence that could either save me or destroy me? As I drove away, the reporters' cameras flashing in my rear view, I felt a strange mix of grief and liberation. 8 years of being their savior had ended in a blaze of truth. But the cost was high. My family fractured, my company teetering, my life a target. Yet for the first time I wasn't afraid. I was free. Free to fight, to rebuild, to redefine family as those who earned my trust, not demanded my money. The road ahead was treacherous, but I was Emily Harper, and I'd built an empire from nothing. They'd underestimated me once. They wouldn't again.